Okay guys, welcome to another episode of Nostalgic Video Cars, the video edition. We're here in Rosemont, Illinois for the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. This is an annual event that's held every year, usually the third weekend in November in Chicago, Rosemont, Illinois. So for example, this is everything and anything you want to know about vintage 60s, 70s muscle cars, performance cars, and the best that Detroit had to offer back in the 60s and 70s. So over here to my left, for example, we have a 1967 Shelby GT350. Over here on my right, we got a very rare Ford experimental truck, actually built in 1963. Interesting story. There's so much more to see here. Follow me around, and I'll show you some of this other stuff that's going on. So stick around, and we're going to take a walk through a sea of GTO Pontiacs GTO. So follow me around, and I'll try to give you a video edition of some of these cars. So here we have a row and row and row of Buick GSs. Now these are something you don't see very often. These are GS 400s. Some of these are Stage 1 cars. A lot of these are convertibles. Extremely rare cars. There's a couple coupes in the mix too, but these are all 68, 69s. The easiest way to identify them, if you look at a 69, there's no vent window. Okay. And it's got the two bumps on the hood. If you look at a 68, it's got a vent window and what's kind of a good hood scoop, or cowl induction if you want to call it that, is towards the back of the hood by the windshield. You got the louvers on the side. Beautiful, beautiful car. 67, 68, 69 have always been some of my favorites. Here's a car we talked to the gentleman the other day. This is an all original car. This is a 69 Buick GS 400 Stage 1 4-speed car. Okay. And it has ram air setup underneath it. It's kind of a plain Jane, plain vanilla kind of car, but it has a real interesting story. The gentleman that owns it, his parents own a Buick dealership. I think the car was sold new at their dealership. And now he's third generation Buick dealer, and he's got the car and he's keeping it as close to original as possible. Here's something you don't see very often. It's a white GNX. And normally they're black. It's called the X-Ray. Pretty interesting car. Here's another Grand National. This might be a GNX. Now they're easily identifiable because they got the louvers and the fenders. Okay, so these were like the Mac Daddy. These were like, I believe, over close to 400 or over 400 horsepower. They made only 500 of these, but these ones were the special edition. So they're not your average street GNXs, or GXs, I should say, or Grand National. I'll get it straight. That's the beauty of radio and podcast, that we can make mistakes. But some of you guys out there know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so we're going to walk around here and we're going to take a look at some of these other cars. We're getting into an area here which is dear to my heart, because you guys all know that I'm a Ford guy. Look at the Boss 429 in the background there. And this car right here is 1971 Mustang, but this is actually a rare 429 Cobra Jet car, plain Jane vanilla, not a Mach 1, 4-speed car on top of that. Here's a very rare Boss 351. You don't see these. They only made 1,800 of them in 1971. That was billed as Ford's fastest production car at the time. It was 11.5 to 1 motor. They ran 13s in the quarter mile. And then, of course, we have a Boss 302. And my good buddy, Jim Wicks. Jim, how you doing? We're doing a live video here, so why don't you step in for a second?
Good to see you, my friend.
Hey, I'm going to have you come take a... Ronnie, come over here and man the camera here real quick. We're going to do a little interview with Jim. Jim, tell us a little bit about this Boss 302 here. Because these are kind of rare cars.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the odd duck in the bunch. And, it is Boss 302 powered Cougar Eliminator. You know, they made the 351 Cleveland. They made the 428, and then they made 323 Boss 302s for 7. And there's really not all that many known of. They're
survivors.
Yes, the Survivor rate wasn't very good for the car. People, in the
70s.
Late 70s and 80s, they bought the car for the motor and junked the car.
Oh, shame.
So we lost a lot of good ones that way.
Jim, can we take a peek at the motor in here?
Sure.
Now we're going to show you a Boss 302 engine. Of course, you know, the Boss 302 is famous because of Trans Am racing history, but they also found their way in Cougars. And here's a complete, this is probably an extremely well restored, probably top-notch Boss 302 Cougar. very rare you can see one of these with only 300 and some odd of them built to begin with, and less than maybe half of them known to exist.
I don't think there's a third of them that exist.
And all these Boss 302 Cougar Eliminators, they're all 4-speed cars, correct?
Yes. Yeah, anything with the Boss 302 package always was a 4-speed.
Okay.
No automatics.
So what's the story on this car? Who owns this car? Is it your
I own this car. Car come out of California. It still has all the California evaporating smog stuff in the trunk, which is really kind of a circus to see. But
that's that thing with all the tentacles and all the hoses hanging out of it.
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right.
But it was required in California, so they were all built that way, so they could sell them in any state, not just California.
Now, this is a 70 car. Was this built in California or was this built in Michigan?
This is a Michigan
car. Were there any Cougars built in California? I think up until 1969?
Yes.
Cougars?
Yeah, there were some San Jose Cougars.
Okay.
Not later on in the year.
Okay. Can we take a peek on the inside here real quick?
Well, it's probably, I've got all my stuff packed in.
Okay, well, just so we can see the Ford hook. Here, Ron, you can take it around, take a look at that.
You can see the Hurst T-handle.
And all Boss 302s had an 8 grand tack, correct?
Yes, that 8 grand tack instead of 6 grand.
Very unusual.
Boss 302 was a high winding.
Yeah, 60,
big power
6120
on the top end,
yeah. And with the rev limiter and everything. All right, Jim, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody, too, since we're here. Jim is the promoter and founder of the Mid-America Shelby Meet, which is in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
so
it's known today as the Mid-America Ford and Shelby Nationals.
Okay.
We're 4 days of fun. It's Ford's Families and Fun. It's very family-oriented. There's lots of stuff for the kids to do. It's the largest multifaceted Ford event in the nation.
Wow.
We do a 2-day open track.
And that's out of Hallett, right?
Out of Hallett Motor Racing Circuit. And then we have a real vintage race exhibition.
Okay.
And we have a late model group that does that also. And then we do a really neat fun cruise in on Thursday night and Saturday. And then on Saturday we drag race.
Oh yeah, and that's at where? The world famous Tulsa Raceway.
Yeah, Tulsa Raceway Park. Started in its day as Southwest Raceway. Anyway, it's been there since early 60s, and the track is well kept up, so it's a fun track to be at. But Saturday morning we do a Route 66 drive, or a tour to a museum or something. So we'll have a roughly 140-50 mile road tour on Saturday morning, and then at 4 o'clock we open the gates of the drag strip and we race into the evening.
Wow, that sounds like a lot. And don't forget they have swap meets, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We have some really good swap meet stuff, both at Hallett and Tulsa Raceway Park. And then on Sunday we have the show at the Claremore Expo Center, and we have a lot of swap meet vendors there also.
Super. All right, so for our listeners, if people want to find out more about the Mid-America show, how do they go about doing it?
Mid-America Ford and Shelby Nationals.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Well, Claremore, Oklahoma now. We've been in Tulsa for many years, but complications erupted, and just seemed better to move a little bit.
Okay.
So sometimes change is good, and this turned out to be one of the things that we've had more people excited about our moving than I would have ever thought.
Super. Well,
all right.
Good to see you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you down the road. I'm sure we'll see you in Florida.
Just to give you guys a sense of the variety of cars that are here at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals, here's a bunch of second-gen Camaros and Trans Ams. Well, I should say Z28s and Trans Am Firebirds. Here's 79 models. '78 Z28 factory 4-speed car. real pretty. Bang for the buck. You can't beat a second-gen Camaro Firebird. A lot of people like them. Easy to get parts for. Great driving and great handling cars. And of course, what made the second-gen Firebird real popular is obviously they were featured in a number of movies. One of the early ones was Mac Q, where John Wayne drove a Brewster Green 1973 Trans Am. And of course, the most popular one was Smokey and the Bandit, where he drove a black and gold Trans Am. Interestingly enough, there's only one here. Here's a third generation Camaro, Z28. And Camaro, Z28 as well. And that's when they first put 16-inch wheels on a Camaro, or Z28 package. Speaking of the devil, here we go. Here's the Bandit Edition, Special Edition, 77 Trans Am. Black and gold T-tops. There you go, the infamous bird. Automatic, complete with CB radio. Very popular car. Stick around, we got more cars to show you. You're tuned into the South of Radium Cars, the video edition. We're here at the 2024 Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals in Rosemont, Illinois. Lots of cars, lots of things to see. However, before we go, let's just look over here real quick. Look at all those 70 Chevelles. There's even an El Camino over there. Hugger Orange, 454 with rally wheels. Big block, 454. Let's see, what is this? 450 horse? It's a real live LS6. Even has some of the smog on it. Pumps there. 70 El Camino SS 396 Cal induction hood, which is basically the Ram Air setup. Over back to the LS6 car, same thing. Cal induction hood. Always thought that was a good looking hood. Vacuum operated. It's a rare color, silver. Blue, beautiful color. Bench seat, 4-speed. Cal hood. Another LS6. 454 Chevelle. Who doesn't like first-gen Camaros? 68 SS. Automatic. horseshoe handlebar, or horseshoe shifter, I should say. Smog, air conditioning, 396, 350 horse. And of course, the holy grail of first-gen Camaros, 69 Z28 with the underrated 290 horse 302.
Oh, word.
All Z28s and 69 or 4 speeds, 67, 68 as well. 70 was the first year for an automatic. And there you have it. Stick around, we got more coming. A bunch of factory lightweights. Now what factory lightweight cars are, they're basically big motor cars with either fiberglass or aluminum front ends, but these are all Mopars down here. I think there's a few Fords in the mix. And there's a few Chevrolets. They could have been anything from a 4-speed to an automatic. There was a class for this back in the day. As you can see, this is an NHRA record holder. It's a well-known car. Some of these people are actually still alive, some aren't. There's another Dodge. There's a 62 Ford over there. 63 Galaxy over there as well. 62 Chevrolet. 63 Chevrolet. Now these are all lightweight cars. So like the Chevrolets and the Mopars, and I believe the Pontiacs had aluminum front end. Over there is one of Ani Beswick's old Pontiac Tempest station wagons. There's a 421 Pontiac. And all these Mopars here usually ran 426 max wedges. Yeah, look at that. That's a good example of what a liftoff. I saw me earlier talking about the 812 Mopars. This is a these are 63, 64 Dodges. Some of these are 65s. Look at that Mopar over there actually says Jenkins competition. I wonder if that's Grumpy back in the day before he went over and switched to Chevrolets. There's an old vintage metal plate paint shop. There's even a sign down here that says last painted in 1968. American Racing wheels on there. This car has some interesting history to it. Dave Strickler's 64 Dodge. He also raced Chevrolets. Blast from the past.
The Packard 440 metal wires were the hot setup back in the day for regular cars and stuff. The Packard 440 wires. Remember Roger Permanent? Put it on there. That was the hot setup.
Oh yeah, the headlights and the bezels are good. Look at the photo.
63 Max Wedge, Dodge. There's that Ernie Beswick station wagon. Nickname for station wagon are long roofs. Why? Because they have a long roof.
Yeah. But the burgers, you can either get fries or cleaters.
Now, Ford didn't use aluminum on their front ends. Ford used fiberglass fenders and aluminum bumpers. So in some cases they said they used fiberglass doors, I'm not sure about that, and deck lids. And then they used Ford Econoline van seats, which they all used van seats back in the day. So, and here's a 63. Good looking car, big change. Now behind me is a collection of race motors. In particular, there's the Boss 429. There's an experimental marine engine. And what's interesting about this, it was built by McLaren, and it says they only made 2 of them at a cost of $1 million. Now think about that. That's in the 60s. Fuel injected Boss 429. Some Mopar parts. Cross ram parts. There's a Hemi head. Yeah, it's a Hemi. So now you can see what they look like from the top and the bottom.
Don't do this to me, honey. See about selling some of this stuff. Here I have 40 cars, collectors.
It's funny you said
Here's a very rare experimental Hemi motor. If you notice the bump on the hoods or on the valve covers, that's a double overhead cam engine.
I robbed the cradle. My wife's 10 years younger than me. Yeah, mine's a year older than me. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
There's another Max Wedge with cross rams. And then there's your basic 426 Hemi NASCAR motor, also known as the Elephant. And there you have it. 426. Again, we're here at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals in Rosemont, Illinois.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, hey, look over here in the background. We got a very rare Shelby Cobra 427 race car. S6 wire. They actually had 3 cars that they campaigned. They campaigned a 65 Shelby GT350 Mustang, a Ford GT40, and this well-known 427 Cobra. Over here, we got a rare Nomad, 57 Nomad, and a 68 GTO. And these cars will all be available for sale at Kissimmee the first week in January, Florida. So be sure to check out Meekham's auction. In the meantime, what we're going to do, we're going to go check out some other unusual cars you don't see very often. How about these beautiful Buick GSs, okay? And a whole row of convertibles. GSs were pretty powerful cars back in the day in 1970s. So follow me, we'll look at some of those cars. Okay. We're still at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals, and now we're getting to some of the cars that are my favorites. The mighty Boss 429 Mustang. Not only is it 69 in it, but there's a 70 gear as well. 428 Cobra Jet Mustangs. Just a lot of really cool cars. Follow me around and I'll show you more about these cars. So here we have a 1969 Boss 429. And they made 2 different models during 69. And they produced running somewhere around 800 Boss 429 Mustang. The early car, the first 279, had the solid lifted motor and NASCAR rods and a little bit higher compression. And they were called the 820 S motors. And then, after the first 279 cars, roughly. The rest of the cars for the 1969 production were what they called 820T motors, and those were a hydraulic engine. Okay, can't tell them apart, but they did have, like this one has polished, or has the aluminum valve covers, the bright aluminum valve covers. All the early cars, the early NASCAR engines, had kind of a magnesium valve cover, and they would generally have a tendency to turn black. Now, the interesting thing about a Boss 429 Mustang, if you notice it's got Magnum 500s on it, is a Boss 429 basically came as a loaded car. There's only one way to order the car, and that was fully loaded. I think the only option was either an AM FM, or AM 8-track radio. That's all you could get for 1969. And I believe 70 was the same way. So if you look at the 69 and 70 Boss 429, they look very similar. By comparison, here's a 71 429 Cobra Jet. And that's a 429 Cobra Jet. And a 71 to 73 body style, but only available 1 year, and that was 1971. Very fast car. So as I walk down here, I'll show you some of the other cars. We're back to the mighty Boss 429, which by many Mustang aficionados and collectors is considered the holy grail of Mustangs. So this is the motor that Ford came out with, and the retaliation, if you will, of the Chrysler Hemi. Although Ford had the 427 camera motor, which got outlawed, and they came up with the Boss 429, a little bit more success with it, but then in 1972 Ford pulled out of racing, so unfortunately the Boss 429 only survived 1 year, 2 years actually. Here's a 70 Boss 429. Now, besides the body style, the other thing that's most notably different on the Boss 429 69, the hood scoop is painted the same color as the car. In 1970, the hood scoops are black. We'll get to that in a second. All Boss 429s are drag pack cars. All drag pack cars have external oil coolers. In 1970, they were called an A motor, and they actually went back to solid lifter camshaft again. Notice the hood scoop, black. Here we have a 428 Cobra Jet Mustang with a shaker on it. Everybody loves a shaker. Peekaboo, I see you. There we go. This is also a drag pack car, oil cooler. In order to have a drag pack car, you had to have a minimum of a 430 back take to back, 391 axle ratio, and then you had a 410 that was an option, and the 430, which is very rare. So here's a nice 1969 Mach 1 428 Cobra Jet, and actually it's a Super Cobra Jet if it was a drag pack car. So it had, again, little different internals, little different balancing. All 428 Super Cobra Jet had Le Mans rods in them, like a 427. Here's a 1970 428 Cobra Jet. Now this is a regular Cobra Jet. It's not a Super Cobra Jet like the 429 or the 428 Mach 1 we just showed you. This has no external oil cooler, so this is just your basic 428 Cobra Jet with a shaker. 70, and it's in Calypso Coral. Mercury called it Competition Orange. Here's another 71 429 Cobra Jet Mustang. Ram Air, they were all Ram Air. And then they had two different versions of it. They had a 4-speed car that used a Holley carburetor, and then they had an automatic car which used a Ford Quadrajet. Excuse me, Ford Motorcraft carburetor. So it's got dog dishes and trim rings. Here's your 351 Cleveland. Actually, this is an HO. Look at that. And that's a 1 year only 1972 motor. And what this HO is a solid lifter 351 with low compression. And instead of calling it a Boss, they called it a high output. And it was only available in 72. And you could get it in a Cougar or Mustang. and they were 4-speed cars only. Here's a 73 Mach 1. Huh, with a rare half top. And this is a Cobra Jet, also 73. There's the Ram Air setup. You can see the Ram Air plenum underneath the hood. And it's got the aluminum wheels. Ford kind of did away with magnums by 73, although I believe it was an option. It says this car's all original, unrestored. Remember, Ford gives you better ideas. Here we go, look at these beauties. These are mid-50s, late 50s Finn cars. These are Virgil Exner designed Chryslers, like this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful DeSoto right here. And right beside it, this stunning, I believe this is a Dodge Lancer. Look at the fins, look at the detail, look at the chrome, look at the stainless. Wire wheels. Unbelievable car. Look at the fit and finish on this car. Unbelievable, incredible cars. That is 50s Americana at its best. Look at this Chrysler 300 right here. And mind you, if these cars are all 57, 58, they may even have had Hemi motors in them, the early style. And I say like Chrysler would have had a 392, DeSoto had their own. It was maybe around a 350 some odd cubic inch motor. Beautiful cars. Even back then, in the 50s, you talk about style and elegance. These cars had it all. They even had swivel bucket seats back in the day. Just so far advanced. Somewhat, you know, it was a space age back then, so a lot of this stuff has little space age flair to it. Designs and styles. Look at the detail just in that hubcap alone. The fins. The retro spare tire. Unbelievable cars. Rear quarter mounted antennas. Same thing with the Dodge Lancer. Look at the interior. Look at the chrome. Look at the dash. Look at the steering wheel. So futuristic. By comparison, there's a 57 Chevrolet convertible, 59 Pontiac. Some of the best looking cars from a style perspective, from a detail perspective, came out of the 50s. Beautiful cars. Classic 50s Americana here at the 2024 Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. '57 convertible, '59 Pontiac convertible, classic '57 Chevrolet. Don't forget to check us out here. Nostalgic Radio and Cars, the video edition. And don't forget to tune in to Nostalgic Radio and Cars, our radio show, weekly on the Tantalk Radio Network between 7 and 8 p.m. on the Tantalk Radio Network in Clearwater, Florida, where you can hear fascinating and legendary interviews with fascinating and legendary people, car people, musicians. Follow us, like us, and share us. Nostalgic Radio and Cars. And this is my favorite section. Barn finds and hidden gems. These are amazing cars that have been sitting around in barns, or they've been laying around, abandoned at some point in time. Somebody found them and brought them here. Not only did they bring them here, but they probably brought them to the house. And they're either going to be restored or they can leave them alone. So follow me, because I'm going to tell you about some of these really, really interesting cars. And probably most notably is the 63 Corvette split window that's sitting back here. Okay, that was an original tanker car. And over here, we have an actual 1968 RT Coronet that was a factory Hemi car. So stick around. We're going to show you more about these cars. Yep. Even celebrity movie cars show up. So if you guys remember the movie Joe Dirt, there's the two made-up Daytonas that were used in the movie. These are show cars. Yeah. Dig the shag, man. It's actually got a 4-speed in it. Well, that's classic. Nice set of rusty Kragers. Well, that looks like a Superbird. But this one, if you ask me, is a Charger. '69 to be exact. Love the chain steering wheel. Column shift. Plus in movie cars, they vary. Remember, they're on film, so they just have to look close. The average guy doesn't know the difference. And speaking of movie cars, everybody remember the movie Two-Lane Blast Top? Well, it has a pair of slicks in the back. It's a 55. This one was driven by James Taylor. In the movie.
I think we're good.
How about the movie American Graffiti? There's a 55 Chevy that Alfalfa drove. So there you have it. A couple of movie cars. Here on display, 2024 Muscle Car Nationals. Alright, here we got a 73 Trans Am. Kind of what caught my eye here was all this tire dust on the back. Maybe, or maybe they didn't do a burnout. More cars, more vendors. So you got a little of everything here. You got a Volkswagen, got a custom truck. A Brooklyn, a modified Dodge Dart, Falcon, another Boss 429, another 70 Super Big, and another Trans Am, and memorabilia, and posters, and hats, and a clone Superbird. That hood on 70 Super B is the best looking hood.